What is the book that made you want to do nothing else on a rainy autumn day but read? Was it a moody, atmospheric slow burn? Was it a fantastical adventure that swept you off your feet? Was it filled with melancholy that made your heart ache in the best way? Or was it just so cozy that you wanted it to go on forever? Books that drip with the mysterious wonder of fall are so special, and I think that's because autumn itself is so special. Every season has its own celebrations and ceremonies, and for me, autumn is a time for retreating and preparing for the long hibernation ahead. No one expects you to make plans when it's pouring out. It's an introverted homebody's dream. Add a book, some cozy candlelight, something pumpkin spiced preferably, and you've got yourself an ideal afternoon. Now, I know it's a bit difficult to get into this cozy mood when it's literally summer temperatures in London, but the way I'm going to respond to the existential dread that climate change conjures up is with a good book. But what to read? This list is for those of you who can't wait for the weather to get its act together so you can curl up with a book. These are cozy, more often than not filled with rainy, stormy days. They can be a little bit dark, maybe a little bit sad, but in a strangely comforting way. And they are guaranteed to bring on the fall vibes. So join me in drinking a delicious warm cup of tea while I go through this list of recommendations. Without further ado, here it is. First up, we have one of my all-time favorites, The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafon. I think this is quintessential autumn. Not only does it have lots of descriptions of autumnal weather throughout, but the lyrical writing and the unraveling mystery also make it just fit the vibe perfectly. This book will transport you to Barcelona, 1945. This boy named Daniel, whose father deals books, is mourning the death of his mother, and his father takes him to this incredible place, a labyrinth of shelves upon shelves of books called the Cemetery of Books, and there he discovers a very mysterious volume, and it just captivates him. It's called The Shadow of the Wind, and he's so enthralled by this book that he is determined to find other works by this author, this mysterious author, but he finds they don't exist. Someone has been systematically burning all these books. Why? He decides to investigate, and as he goes throughout his journey, he meets strange characters shrouded in secrecy across the city, and the mystery deepens. It's very exciting, but I don't think it's for everyone. I recommend this one for people who like really detailed, descriptive writing, who like quite formal dialogue, and obviously something that's set in the past. And I also recommend this for people who like their cozy autumnal reads with a bit of darkness, death, and doomed love. Next up, we have another all-time favorite, which I'm realizing is actually kind of a common thread in this list. I think I must just really like fall books and the vibes that they bring. This is The Listeners by Leni Zumas. Oh my gosh, Leni Zumas is just so underrated. I recommend that you check her out if you have liked any of my recommendations so far, because she's one of my favorites. It's been a while since I read this one, so I can't make a lot of promises about the setting. I'm not sure what season it takes place in, but from memory, it is quite dark and dreary, which I realize doesn't sound like a compliment, but I mean it in the best way. I feel like the overall story and the tone and the writing just make it fit really well in fall, if you ask me. To me, this brings on the fall vibes that I would want from a book. This book follows a woman named Quinn who has never really dealt with the death of her younger sister, that horrible scar from her childhood. She's on a downward spiral from a short-lived stardom in a punk rock band, and no matter what coping mechanisms she comes up with to try to deal with her past, she can't face it. Now, I realize as I describe that, it might not be the most cozy vibes for everybody. Definitely tread with caution. But if you like your autumn days filled with melancholy, dreamy books, especially ones that maybe make you cry, filled with beautiful writing and sharp dialogue, you might like this one. I have been wanting to reread this again for so long, and fall will definitely be the time that I do it. I read this book just last month, and by a happy coincidence, it turned out to be a perfect fall book, and that is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. Now, to warn you, you will have absolutely no idea what's going on for a very big chunk of this book, but maybe that's what you want in a fall book, to just have absolutely no idea what's going on. In this book, you'll be carried along by a wonderfully mysterious setting, this strange house filled with enormous marble statues and columns, crashing waves and storms. And here you'll meet Piranesi, who isn't even sure if that's his real name. I think of Piranesi as this very sweet, naive, beautiful soul. His very comforting aura is just one part of what I feel makes this so autumnal. But I really don't want to spoil anything, so I'm not going to say anything more about it. I'm sure this book is already on your radar. It has been making the rounds. But if you're wondering when to read it, when the vibes will be right, I think now during fall is a really good time. This next book is an unexpected favorite of the ones I read last year. It's Matrix by Groff. I really didn't expect to like this one as much as I did, because I'm not really a historical fiction kind of girl. But the beautiful writing in this totally just sucked me in and swept me off my feet. When I say historical fiction, I'm not exaggerating. This book is set in an abbey in the 1100s. This book follows Marie, who is sent away from the royal court where she's grown up to become a prioress of this abbey. And that's exactly what it's all about. It follows her life there and how she helps the nuns in this abbey. When I think of this book, I think of Misty Mornings. But it does span many decades, so it goes through all the seasons. So while I can't promise a totally autumnal setting, I think the fall vibes do come through in the warm hug that is the beautiful writing in this book. Again, totally swept me off my feet. I was enthralled, and also the historic setting just makes it feel very suitable for fall. I wouldn't recommend it to history buffs because I can't guarantee that you're going to be satisfied. I wouldn't know either way. I also don't recommend it for people who just die for dialogue, because there is barely any dialogue in this book, which actually I really liked. It was unexpected. That being said, if you love detailed writing, if you want to follow someone through her whole life, if you're interested in something that has a mild LGBTQ plus focus, you might like this one this fall. Next up, we have The Dutch House by Patchett. I think the reason this one stands out as so cozy in my mind is because the audiobook that I listened to is read by Tom Hanks, who I think we can all agree is the coziest of all actors. For the record, I become more and more hesitant to love celebrities because you never really know what they're like. But for the time being, Tom Hanks does seem like one of the good ones. On to the book. The Dutch House follows the lives of siblings Danny and Maeve Conroy, who are evicted from their childhood home, the Dutch House, by their stepmother. And here I go again describing something that is not at all cozy and actually quite sad. But it is a really lovely story. It spans 5 decades, so you see the siblings grow old together, you see their bond becoming stronger, and ultimately it's just a really lovely story about love and forgiveness and sibling devotion and childhood memories. So if cozy fall books to you mean historical fiction, family sagas, if you want to read something that revolves around a lavish American estate, and if you're interested in fairy tales, then this might be one that you want to pick up this autumn. There's something about this next author's writing style that makes all his books feel really autumnal to me. So the next book we have is The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle by Haruki Murakami. I need to reread this book, but from what I remember, it follows this disenchanted man named Toru who's looking for his wife and her cat. And along the way, he meets this eccentric cast of characters and also several surreal experiences. I mean, who doesn't like a good magical realism-infused mystery in the fall? Like I said, I feel like Haruki Murakami's stories have a very autumnal energy. I don't want to speak for all his novels because I read them back in high school, but I feel like they tend to be quite slow and a little bit meandering, which to me is just perfect for a rainy day. Okay, so last autumn was when I really got into reading seasonal books. My partner Sean and I went up to Edinburgh to look after his sister and brother-in-law's dog. First of all, if Edinburgh was the season, there's no doubt in my mind that it would be autumn. Second of all, we were there for 2 weeks, and pretty much the entire time I was sick. I was a pile of blankets on the couch, surrounded by tissues, watching rom-coms, and playing witchy video games. Lastly, I was reading this, The Hound of the Baskervilles by Arthur Conan Doyle. Yes, a Sherlock Holmes mystery, and let me tell you, I could not have picked a better book to launch me into my seasonal reading. If I had gone to the cemetery of books that appears in The Shadow of the Wind, I don't think I could have found a more autumnal book than this. This is a Sherlock Holmes detective novel, complete with so-called spectral dogs and mysterious anonymous letters and a mystery unfolding through diary entries and, of course, rainy 19th century England weather and a misty more. It just brings all the fall vibes you could ever need, and I really enjoyed it. If you want something short and sweet and guaranteed to get you into a cozy fall mood, this might be what you're looking for. Save the best for last. I think you all knew this was coming. The Secret History by Donna Tartt, Queen of Dark Academia, aka Supreme Leader of all autumnal book lists. A very quick rundown for those of you who may not be familiar with this book. It follows Richard, a student who joins an exclusive group led by this professor at a prestigious New England university. He starts to get wrapped up in their cultish drama, and things take a dark turn. I'm just obsessed with the first line of this book. The snow on the mountains was melting, and Bunny had been dead for several weeks before we came to understand the gravity of our situation. For those of you who do know this book, or maybe those who have just listened thus far, you might be wondering, this involves a cultish school group, a murder, and a lot of dark secrets. How could it possibly be cozy? And the answer is, it just is. Okay, Dark Academia is all about dark, it's in the name, dark, moody atmospheres, universities filled with history and secrets, gothic aesthetics, a focus on literature and knowledge and art, even though Dark Academia also has a very big focus on the dark underbelly of those things. I think all those elements just make it such a cozy genre that wouldn't fit in any other season besides fall. And this book, if you haven't read it, is a must. That said, if you want your cozy autumnal books to be filled with characters who love each other and don't have any secrets from each other and don't murder anybody, then this might not be the one for you. Well, bookworms, that is a wrap. I hope by now you are snuggled up with a toasty cup of tea, ready to dive into these cozy autumnal reads. When leaves are falling and the air gets crisp and days are getting shorter, there's truly nothing better than getting lost in a cozy book. If you enjoyed this list of autumnal books, don't forget to like and subscribe for more recommendations of books to keep you warm and toasty on a cold night. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye!